welcome guys back to the Talkaholics podcast. This is Razia.
Hi, this is Iman.
And today we're going to be doing a movie review of a movie we've actually been looking forward to and have mentioned in previous episodes, but we're going to be reviewing Malcolm and Marie. Yay!
Yeah! And we're actually on time.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, much like the Space Force review, we told each other, okay, it's coming on this date, we're reviewing it a few days or the next day after, and we're just going to do it. So before we get into spoilers, don't worry if you haven't watched it. We're going to give our kind of overall impressions and give you a little sense of like what we thought about it, if we recommend you should watch it or not. And then we'll tell you when to like switch off. If you have
we'll give you a warning. Don't worry.
We're good like that. So why don't we start off with you, Iman? What did you think?
Okay, well, I have lots of thoughts. First of all, I don't know what you expected, but I did not expect the movie to be the way it was. I don't know what gave me the impression of it being like more lovey-dovey than it actually was going to be.
Right.
But I enjoyed it. I think like I definitely recommend you watch it because it makes a lot of points. It makes a lot of points.
Absolutely.
It definitely discusses various things.
Yeah.
Things about human nature, relationships. It even talks about the film industry, about Hollywood, about critics, how people take criticism. It's very interesting. I enjoyed it.
Yeah,
I did.
In the same way too that I don't think I went into it understanding there was gonna be like a complete romance, but definitely not the tone that this movie gives.
Yeah,
if that makes sense. I did expect it to kind of be over the top just because that's what I was hearing and like knowing that it was gonna like I knew enough about the premise that it was just the two of them in one setting that I knew it kind of would have to be a little over dramatic to compensate with it just being about them.
Yeah.
So
true.
But kind of surprised, with the tone that it took on. My overall impression, I definitely surprised too, but also kind of happy with how they went with this. It felt after watching it, I was like, this feels a lot more like a play than it does a movie because of how much of it is just dialogue back and forth, and
lots of monologues too.
A lot of monologues, yeah. So if you're not into like, if you're an action type like special effects person, this movie is not for you at all. Like at all. It's a lot of people talking. But this kind of movie, I enjoy. Surprise, I enjoy plays. I enjoy this kind of thing. Because it felt like you were just eavesdropping into these two people's lives, and that kind of felt nice. Understand who they were as people. They're also very specific kind of characters, which I enjoyed.
Exactly. Yeah. Also, it was filmed in black and white.
Yeah. This,
which
by
is
the way,
also
by the way, this is from the movie. The whole thing's in black and white.
It's so interesting. Like, you can see everything from the outside. I was like, there was that one right like near the beginning of the film. There was that one shot where it just shows the house, and literally you can see everything. And I'm like, so interesting. Such an interesting setting. It's so interesting. And also, I was reading an article, and I'm pretty sure it's Zendaya's house.
It's her house? Really?
Well, I don't know, because in the article it said Zendaya reached out to the director and was like, can we make a movie in my house? But I don't think this is her house. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. I sourced this from an article that talked about the house. I probably should have read it. But
it's a pretty cool house, though.
It's cool. It's definitely. I mean, the reason why I kind of like picked it as a backdrop is one of the things I like the most about this was the setting. If you're gonna place this movie in one place, it has to be interesting.
Exactly.
And the way it's weird because they basically explore the entirety of this house, like the outside, inside, every single room. But if you ask me today after watching the movie, I couldn't draw out a layout of this house because it's such a maze. It's such a maze.
Confusing. It's so confusing.
It doesn't make any sense, like how many sliding doors there are and the specific angles.
How many entrances and exits? I don't. Everywhere you go, there's an exit.
Yeah, and I mean, and it's perfect for kind of how the movie even is treated. That it's maze-like and it's kind of confusing, and even like I could tell like there's purposeful shots where you really can't see past the hallway, and it's like perpendicular to where the walls are and things like that. Very much like reminded me a lot of Parasite, which used the house exactly the same way. Of like it's just confusing and it feels like a labyrinth. But yeah, I mean overall like the artistic choices, the dialogue felt really good. There's some, I mean we'll get into it later, but some things that I'm like that were interesting. It just, for what they were trying to accomplish and for how boring this could have been, I was impressed by like just how they kind of kept me questioning and wanting me to pay attention.
Yeah, for sure. So, and also for being filmed during the pandemic.
Yeah.
And not having, you know, all the studio space and all the, you know, workers, all the assistants and everything. I can't remember what the article said, but I'm pretty sure it was just like 4 of them or something.
Yeah.
In the house shooting. So.
And the movie is really good about like capturing too, because I read a little bit about that too, of how it kind of captured like the claustrophobia.
Yes, the claustrophobia. Kind of understanding. Yes. I remember it literally said there's a sense of claustrophobia,
which I felt,
and then,
which I got.
Yeah, and then the journalist asked the director, like, would you have thought of this if not for COVID? And he was like, no, because like literally we're all kind of experiencing this sense of claustrophobia of like being stuck inside our houses.
Yeah.
So,
and with the same people and like what that brings up.
Yeah, definitely.
So I mean, overall, I'm recommending it. I with the caveat of like if you would be open to this kind of a movie, then yes, watch it.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, like you have to know the type of person you are and what type of genres you like. But it's I say it's a must watch if you can get through like. Yeah. The monologues.
If you're ready for it. Yeah, is what we're saying.
The silence. There's a lot of silence too at times.
It's a lot of people watching kind of stuff. Yeah. So I think that's pretty much like, go watch it now. This is your time.
It's on Netflix. You have no excuse.
Exactly. It's on Netflix. And yeah, feel free to pause this and come back whenever you're ready. Because we're getting into spoiler territory. It's going to be somewhere on this screen.
Spoilers are here.
I think I'll go first in talking about spoilers. With the subject matter of this movie, I mean, it's more or less talking a lot more about relationships than I thought it would, and especially the specific kind of relationship. They almost outright say that this is abusive, right? Like, Zayn kind of flat out says that to her partner. And just for like a little background, the premise of this is that this couple has just come back from a movie premiere, which is the male counterpart is his movie, and it's what happens after the girlfriend's first viewing of it, and her personal problems with it being that the movie's more or less about her, and how she isn't the one acting in it, and how she feels misrepresented, things like that. So
and he forgets to thank her,
stuff like
during
that.
His
exactly.
Speech.
Yeah, it kind of starts from there and kind of trickles down into a lot more exposing what the relationship really is like. Right?
Yeah.
So I was really surprised with how much more it was really about this kind of an abusive relationship, and also how they very obviously talked about politics in movies and representation and being a creative person who's a person of color. Like, those topics were I think probably as they were talking about making this movie, and if we read the article more, like, this was more or less an improvised movie. So I feel like a lot of that, just like as they were talking, we're writing it down as part of the screenplay, which definitely spoke volumes. But I like that's what they decided to tackle with this. But the one thing with it being improv is that some of the monologue moments and some of the, going back and forth felt unnatural, especially like in the very beginning of the movie, closer to like when she's making mac and cheese and stuff, that I was like, this is like, there's a part where she was going yes, no to like things that he was saying, like they're just repeating back each other, and it felt very like table read-esque, like they were just reading their lines, and some parts took me out like that. Where
I feel like Zendaya's character, like, it took time to understand the depth of her, because right off the bat she's not happy. You can, like, right off the bat, the moment you see her on screen, you can tell she's pissed. Like,
that's the thing.
And you're just coming into this movie like, whoa, he's super happy, she's super pissed, what's going on? And you'll kind of already gravitate to him because he has a super, like, positive, he's really happy, he had a great night, and she's kind of just acting like
Yeah.
It's
it's actually one of my favorite things about this movie. Like, I'm a little obsessed always with how movies start or how TV shows start, like the pilots, like how they set up the scene. And it was perfect for me that one of the first things she does is she comes home, she's basically storming through the hallway. She goes, takes a shit, and then she has a smoke break. Like, those are the first two things she does, and I was like, I already know where. She hasn't said a word in the movie, but
nothing. That's what I'm saying. Like, the silence really speaks in this movie. Like, you could, plain as day, you can tell this woman ain't happy. She's not happy, and I mean, obviously, it has something to do with her dude, because he's like saying all these things and she's like monotone answers back, kind of thing.
Exactly.
But honestly, like, after you watch the movie, when you look at it as a whole, I kind of appreciate that's how it started.
Yeah, me too.
Because, like, in the moment you're like, oh, why is she giving off such like a rude exterior? But then when you actually watch it and you get like see the character develop, you understand. You're like, oh, I agree with her. She has every right.
No,
to
absolutely,
be upset.
Absolutely. It's funny that you mentioned that though, because one of the things that I wrote down as one of my dislikes is that I don't know what it is, but this movie is like, as soon as I found out that she was mad in the scene, I found out that he was a douchebag. And I think it was like something about, like, I don't think that was a movie's intent. I think the movie wanted you to feel like she's being too difficult and ruining his night,
Yeah.
And he's a successful, great, creative person. But some vibe and some, like, I don't know what it was, that they made it too easy to read him as a douchebag. Like, my radar was going off like crazy. I was like, no, he's a jackass.
You know why? You know why I think it is because he had no reaction to her being upset.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah, there's that too. Yeah.
There was, how long was he talking to her? And you can tell, you can tell she does not care. She doesn't want to hear it.
Yeah.
She's just making your mac and cheese, okay? And if I were to have a conversation with someone like that, I'd be like, okay, you're upset, obviously. What's going on? Right. But he kind of just keeps going on about how great his night was, and did you hear this, and did you see that, and da-da-da-da-da. And it's kind of like plays into you from the start of it. You're like, oh, he's narcissistic. Like, he thinks he's the greatest person in the world.
Mm-hmm. No,
so
yeah, that was one of the things where I mean, kudos to them for just like, I love when movies just show instead of tell you. Mm-hmm. But part of me was like, I wish that if it made it so clear that in the beginning you questioned why she was being so difficult and why he was like, what he wasn't being, treated better, right? Then that way that how the movie unfolded would have felt more like you would have felt worse as a person. It would have been like an interesting layer.
Yeah.
Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But again, like with how the movie was developed, that's probably just something they were learning as they were going. But yeah, that was kind of my like biggest miss, if I could complain about anything in this movie. But what did you think about how I don't know if you noticed this with the way that they talk to each other? There was a lot of like they use the word obtuse a lot, and a lot of like highbrow film industry kind of talk. And I was wondering if like you caught that too. That I was like, I don't know if why I was thrown off.
Oh, the vocabulary was top tier. They definitely. The first time I was like, damn, I don't think I've ever heard that word before. Like.
The amount of times they use the freaking word obtuse, I was like, no one says that. No one says that.
Yeah,
I don't care how
I wonder, like, I mean, obviously that's probably intentional, I would assume, because you don't regularly talk like that. So I wonder why that was a choice they made in terms of like just conversation, like they're having conversation. Yeah. Why are you? It's interesting. That's an interesting point, though.
Yeah,
because I didn't really think much of it other than like, oh.
That's just how they talk. Yeah. I was wondering if that's just how they thought that would sell the fact that they're rich people, like that they're so used to being around other rich people, so this is how they talk now. But like that's the only thing that I was like, because things that took me out were things like that I was like, oh, why? Like you wouldn't what? Like I don't know. Things
especially
like
during his monologues.
Yeah, especially with the part where she's like lying down on the couch and he's just going off about that.
Yeah.
critic.
Oh, that was a long monologue.
Yeah, I don't know if I've
ever seen a monologue that long before. It just kept going and going, and it would be interrupted like sometimes by her like little like okay, whatever. But it just like,
that was like a good like 10 to 15 minutes of him going off, and I think I probably checked my phone once or twice because I was like, he's not done. He's not done.
Oh my god. Yeah, I remember when the movie started, I was like, oh, I need to take notes because I was like, I need to be prepared for this episode. And I was just taking like reactionary notes on my phone. So let me read a couple because Please. I think looking back at them, I was so confused. So my first note is Marie real unimpressed. and then my next is present time but black and white. Because that's one thing we assume about black and white films is that they're set in the past, but this is very much in the present. Mm-hmm. And I just wrote, Marie is so unbothered! Exclamation point, exclamation point, exclamation point. Why is she mad?
Why is she mad?
And this is before, like, we find out. Because this is, like, the first, like, 10-ish minutes, maybe. Like, we don't know why she's upset.
Yeah.
And then I was like, oh, I see. She right.
I love that. Can you write film reviews like that for me, please? Like, on the Hollywood Reporter, that is just it. It's just those 4 bullet points.
And then when finally he gets his mac and cheese, I'm like, why is he eating the mac and cheese like that?
Ew, yes!
And he's doing so hard.
He's just, like, jamming the stupid bowl. I was like, calm the fuck down.
Yes!
Oh, my God.
And then, yeah, that was basically it. And I stopped taking notes. I was like, I just need to keep watching. But my favorite was, oh, I see. She right. Because she was right. That was, like, intense. Like, that relationship's so toxic.
Oh, so from the beginning, it's just, like, it's just the way that he addresses her, right?
Yeah.
It's like a you deserve to talk to me kind of vibe of, like, why the fuck are you not
so he's so narcissistic, and, like, I'm not saying she's perfect either, because there's no love on either side.
Not really.
That relationship. But, like, yes, and, like, some of the things she said was also messed up. But, like, the way he would retaliate, like, was just pure evil. His words were, like, very calculated, and, like, oh, I need to, like, drag you down and make sure that you will not, like, it's kind of like a trap, like a manipulative trap.
Oh,
it's like,
absolutely. That's a huge
I'm the one who built you up, I'm the one who saved you, kind of thing. And it was unsettling. Yeah. Very unsettling.
No, 100%. I think, like, I think part of why I kind of I think I even forgive her for some of the things that she said in the movie, because I come from the view of, like, she more or less is clearly, this is not their first time fighting with each other. Like, they've been fighting for a very long time. And I think that, like, they make it clear that they met when she was super young and vulnerable, like, you know, being a recovering drug addict and things like that. She's simply fighting to be able to be heard, but she's clearly not good at relationships and intimacy. Like, that there's that she can't even see sometimes when he's trying to manipulate her. And like the perfect scene is when he's over the bathtub and saying things, like, in the same breath of him saying I love you is saying, like, the worst things to her.
You know? Because, and it's so manipulative, because he literally, like, he comes up to her and he goes, oh, you thought this movie was about you? No, it's about all these other girls I've been with and all this stuff, and, like, just, like, reminding her of her trauma, too. Yeah, exactly. And then he comes back and goes, but I just wanted to spend my night, you know, celebrate, and all I wanted to do was be with the woman I love. Like, no, sir.
Exactly. No. Yeah, those two things don't go together. I'm sorry.
No.
But because of those, like, really cool conversation points, you're, like, I think Zendaya had 2 of those stronger lines. For me was, like, the final monologue she gives when she's sitting on the bed before, like,
yes, that one was powerful.
That was like great, like, really, really strong. And for me, my favorite line was probably, like, when she regrets telling him about, you know, almost killing herself with the nail thing, and she says it's embarrassing
because he puts it all in his movie.
Yeah, exactly. And, like, that line of her saying it's embarrassing that it even happened, that I even survived, and then on top of that, me telling you and trusting you with that. I thought that was really, really, powerful. Like, if there's anything that came out of this, I thought those 2 writing pieces were, like, amazing.
Yeah, I actually really like the line where she said, the way I see you as a filmmaker is the same way I see you as a, I think, human being. Is that what she said? Something like that.
Yeah.
Or as a person or whatever. And I remember reading the article, and it was basically, like, the director mentioned that the point was, if we're unable to hear critique, then we're unable to grow as artists and human beings. And I thought that was an interesting point there, because I'm like, that's very true. Because he could not take critique at all. Like, the whole rant about the white girl from the LA Times.
Yeah.
With
I was like, oh my god, shut up.
The whole idea was that it was a good critique.
Yeah.
Like, it was a positive critique, but no matter what, like, he just believes he's, like, God.
Yeah.
And he could do no wrong, and, like, the way no one can perceive his work other than the way he perceives it, or something like that, you know?
Yeah, and the irony that they were playing the whole time there was that he constantly felt misrepresented, because he hated the fact that they were bringing politics there. He hated the fact that a white woman was critiquing his work, et cetera, but the point being, he is the one doing the misrepresenting with how he displayed his girlfriend, right? Yeah. Using this other actress. She said something about it initially being her to play the role, and it kind of got, like, lost along the way. So like that, I thought it was cool. Like they flipped his character twice like that, where he couldn't even see himself that, like, no, but you're doing the misrepresenting, if anything.
Exactly, yeah. And I feel like it was so interesting for this to be shot in one setting, because, like you said, like, we were kind of in the middle of, like, this dispute, and you kind of feel, like, awkward. Like, you're kind of like, okay, I don't want to be here for this fight.
Like, guys, why don't you go to sleep? It's like 2 a.m.
You know, and usually when you're watching a movie, right, like, if you see a couple fighting, like, usually the scene ends, one of them leaves the house the next day, you know, a couple days, but this whole thing happens in one day.
Sat in it.
And no one can leave. And that's like, we can't leave, they can't leave, no one's leaving. And that brings it back to the whole point of, like, the claustrophobic, or the sense of claustrophobia, because it's like, there were so many times during the movie, I'm just like, can you guys just go to sleep? Like, can you just stop?
Absolutely. The second that she mentioned it was 2 a.m. too, because I didn't gauge, like, time, I was like, what the fuck, sleep
I was already. Like, why do you... Stop. Just stop. Just stop. Go to sleep. I don't know. The amount of times I'm just like, Zendaya, just pack up your stuff and leave.
Yeah.
Leave.
Absolutely.
But she made a point in the film to say, like, the reason why he can talk to her the way he talks to her and treat her the way he treats her is because he knows that she'll never leave him, because, like, she doesn't think she's capable of leaving him. Like, it was something like that. I remember she did mention that in the movie.
That he basically gaslights her, right? Because he said she calls him needy, remember, up front from the beginning, and then flips it under the very end to be like, no, actually, you're the one who needs me. That's why, like, why are you still here? You know?
Yeah.
But yeah, like, this whole thing was like abusive relationship 101. Like, like, even just the part where she calls him verbally abusive, and he's like, wait, you mean verbally abusive, right? Like, let's clarify, like, that was any better. like
yeah, well, no, yeah, he was like, abusive. She's like, yes, verbally abusive, and he's like, oh, verbally abusive again.
Yeah,
like, no, it's not even better.
Dude, it's not a compliment either way.
She's like an animal, like.
Yeah, it was terrible.
I have to say, though, that, like, both of them did an amazing job in their roles, in their characters, like, yeah. Great.
Yeah, exactly.
Great job. And I remember there was a lot of critique. People were not comfortable because Zendaya usually plays a teenager in a lot of her stuff, and like, this is, like, I think one of her first times playing, like, an adult character.
Yeah.
Where she's seen, like, much differently, and people were very uncomfortable by the fact. But it's like, Zendaya as a person is an adult. Like,
yeah, that's weird. Yeah.
So, yeah, there was literally, like, people like, ew, not ew, but, like, you know, like, why is she doing this role kind of thing? And it's like,
I think
she is an adult herself.
Yeah.
So,
I think that maybe
so it was kind of refreshing to see her in something new.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I think that maybe comes with her being a Disney star, right? Like, that's typically, like, the reaction.
Exactly.
The one question I wanted to ask you before we wrap things up is, like, I know we can go more into the analysis and stuff of this, but one thing that I saw on social media that I thought was really interesting, and maybe what it might have been in the article I sent you, but Zendaya had mentioned that this was her, I saw it somewhere that she mentioned this was her dream role, and I was wondering why she said that.
That's interesting. I didn't know that. I never read that, but why? That's a good question. Why? I don't know. I don't know.
I think maybe it had something, like, I'm genuinely asking this because I have no conclusions. I saw this somewhere. But the big part of it being, like, she had a big role in making this movie, right? I think she's also listed as a producer, so she probably had a huge role in, like, molding this character and doing what she wanted with it. So I think there's that. But also she's, like, the movie is self-aware, right? Like, the movie talks about the movie industry completely.
Exactly, yeah.
And even at the end, she talks about, like, what it's like to be a female director and maybe having influence on, you know, what happens with a female character. So what I thought was interesting is that, like, the strong female type here in this movie, I think, is done better than a lot of other strong female type movies, because, like, the movie industry likes to display strong women as, like, almost in a very masculine way, right? Being very alpha, successful all around, doesn't take shit from nobody, et cetera, right? But I would still argue that her character in this is still strong, because I think the ending kind of implies that she leaves, right? Or is at least done with this shit. And she speaks up for herself and constantly decides to question things over and over and over again throughout the night. Despite the fact that she's weak in the sense of, like, her past, and she has regrets, etc. So that's what my head went to, of, like, okay, maybe she is having more agency to, like, make this more of a layered strong woman.
You know what? That's a really good point, because, and when you mentioned that whole part where she's talking about so basically there's a scene in his movie where the protagonist gets attacked, and in the scene she's topless. Yeah, that's what she's talking about, right? And the critique of his movie was saying, like, he sexualized her. Yeah. Because why was her top off? Why did that need to happen? It was kind of unnecessary, and so she agreed with the critique, and so he was not happy about it. Like, of course. She was trying to make him understand, like, maybe if you were a female, or if you were a female director, or if you had a more sense of femininity, you would understand that probably wasn't necessary for that scene to still play as it did. Right. And that's a really good point, because, like you said, she, as a producer, has a role in the creation of this film. Yeah. So there's this idea that, yes, the director is a man of this film. Yeah. As a producer, she is able to give her input as a woman on how her character reacts to certain things, and how her character, like, that kind of stuff. So yeah, I can see that being an answer to that question. I don't know if it's the whole answer, but it makes sense, definitely, for sure. Yeah. To your point of, like, it being kind of her first adult role, and her not being, like, this teenager, that this is her choice of, like, this is the woman in this relationship. She's also a creative person, but it's been denied, right, of her. That's true. So yeah, I thought that was really interesting. But yeah, do you have any other analysis, any critique further before? I mean, like I said in the beginning, I think that everyone should give it a watch. Like, I really enjoyed it, and I think that, again, like Razia mentioned, depending on what your style of or genre of film you like to watch, you might not enjoy it as much as, you know, like an action movie or a super, you know, romantic movie, whatever, because it's definitely not it. Yeah. But I think that that's not it. But I think that it's important, because it doesn't only talk about relationships. It also talks about so many other aspects, like we said, the film industry, and, like, you know, this portrayal of a woman, and how strength resides in different women. And so I think it makes a lot of points. Yeah. And on top of that, there's the whole other lens of looking at it just through a film perspective, how it's shot. The score, how is music used in the movie, like the way they use music in the movie, right? Which he plays, which I thought was really, really interesting. Yeah, like the way they use music to communicate with one another was very interesting. Yeah, there are ways of saying sorry to each other. Yeah, like there's a lot that can be broken down. It would probably take hours, like hours upon hours, to look at it from different lenses and break it down sufficiently. Yeah, but I think that if you do watch it critically. Like, don't just let it. I think it deserves that. This is the kind of movie that deserves that. Yeah. Yeah, you need to, like, be aware. You need to watch and be like, oh, question, like, why did they decide to say that? Why did they decide to shoot it from this angle? Why did they decide to use that song? Watch it critically and try to understand what the message they're trying to say, and the various messages they're trying to say. Actually, exactly. There's so many. Yeah. Awesome. Yeah, I more or less the same. The only the only additional things is, like, I guess one of the things that I noticed is that this movie actually is pretty sparse when you consider, like, how few comedic relief moments there are. Like, I mean, there's a little bit where she kind of has, like, 2 moments of, like, making him laugh, more or less, right? And, like, imitating that white woman.
Like that part where not even I was gonna mention like the part where he dances, but that's not like it wasn't really goofy. That's just him kind of doing his thing.
Yeah, it's meant to be very heavy. The movie is meant to be very heavy.
Yeah,
and like you said, there's very few times where it kind of they have to break it because if they don't break the tension, they
stay in that. Yeah, as long as
so there are times where it's like he'll apologize and it'll kind of slow down a bit. And then someone will get upset again, and then it'll go over again. And then she'll kind of apologize, like that one time with the song. She tried to apologize with him. He wasn't having it.
Yeah.
That kind of thing.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
This is definitely,
very few times.
Yeah, this is definitely a movie where we're seeing their breaking point, right? Like, this is after, like, maybe even years of fighting, getting to the one last point of, like, no, we've had enough.
Yeah, for sure. And I don't know, like, the way the film ends, it doesn't really give you an answer.
Mm-hmm.
You definitely get to this point where you're like, hey, Zendaya's character is no longer going to take it, but it doesn't necessarily mean she's going to leave. So like, that last little bit of the movie where they kind of just are standing side by side. It's just like, okay, so I don't know what that means, but
I mean, again, there's a lot to unpack with this movie. We could almost have a whole other podcast even on the topic of what the male character was going on, like Malcolm's character was going on about how he was perceived in this movie, of like every choice that his black characters were playing, you know, it meant something about mental health or it meant something about etc. So I thought that was interesting. The only thing obviously is that it's because he's saying it, we take it with a grain of salt and go whatever. Do you know what I'm saying? Because of like that, he's a bad character in the movie, right? So that was one of the things that I was like, that's interesting to use throughout the movie, but maybe for another podcast we'll go more into that. I
mean, I would love to hear what you guys think. Like, if anybody has seen the movie already, let us know what you think in the comments. If you haven't, go watch it and then come back and then let us know what you think, because I want to hear other people's perspectives on it. Like, absolutely. Are there people who truly did not like the movie? Because I don't know how you wouldn't, unless like it's just truly, well, I'm serious, like no, it was very interesting.
If you don't like this, who are you?
No, but like, I don't know how to explain it, because like, you can't say their acting was bad, because it wasn't. You can say that the actor, like the characters were unlikable in a way. You can say that like the plot obviously is not a happy plot, so you can not enjoy it, but the movie was still good. You know?
Absolutely. No, so. I kind of get you. Yes, but knowing us, this is a very us movie. I'm like, I know there's certain friends that'd be like, no, Raziel, come on, I want to be happy with my day. It's like, and not bummed out.
It's like me in my first year. I took in first year of university, I took a film studies class, and I just want to like crack open the textbook and like take this movie and just dissect it. Exactly. But I will not be doing that, because
you'll see her even on the 5-bullet essay.
Never ending.
Is she? What did you say? What was her reaction? You said she right? Yo,
literally, because like you would think, because obviously film critics and stuff are a little more eloquent than that, right? But me, it would be very much like, oh, she right.
No, that's the movie reviews we need, though, Iman. Definitely. Should we ever have a blog or a website first fucking review going up is this one. But thanks for watching, everybody. Again, you can find us all over the socials, Twitter, Instagram. We post our stuff on YouTube. We're on Facebook, SoundCloud, the Apple Podcast app. See, I didn't say iTunes. And Spotify. Right? Yes, of course. And again, leave stuff down below of what you thought about this movie, and if there's something coming up, especially on Netflix, so it's easy to access. Let us know if we should be watching that as well. But until then,
for sure.
Thanks for watching, guys.
We'll see you guys in the next one.
Bye.
Bye.